Welcome back, guys. Today is going to be the last of a series of videos of the fundamentals of economics. This is our last lecture video for Unit 1. And our topic today is types of economies. Our learning target is I can analyze the differences between types of economies. We're going to be looking at 3 different types, okay? The first is capitalism. I'm sure you've heard this before. We hear this word in the news all the time, but the context in which we hear it is not really the true definition. So what is the true definition? Capitalism is an economic system where individuals control output, prices, and wages through the forces of supply and demand. It is completely a hands-free, the government is not really involved in the economy. So companies are owned by people or boards of trustees. They're entrepreneurs. They start businesses. They can make it big. They can bust. And it's just kind of how things go. There's supply for things. So companies are making things because there's a demand for things, because people want them. And the forces of supply and demand, which we're going to learn about next unit, kind of change what sort of companies start and what companies do. Okay, so let's look at advantages and disadvantages of this type of pure capitalism. And sometimes capitalism is called free market. Hear me again. I want you to write it down. Sometimes capitalism is called free market. Okay, so advantages. Competition is good for consumers, right? If I have 2 burger joints and one burger joint has a burger that's $5 and it's got bacon on it, and this burger joint has a burger with bacon on it, but it's $7, me as a consumer is going to say, well, I want to pay $5 for the exact same thing. So it's good for us because it causes companies to compete. And when companies compete, they drive their prices down to get you to buy their goods. Okay. There's also lots of wealth possible. I could start a business and it take off like that in a free market economy, and I am making tons and tons and tons of money, and I can get rich, rich, rich. So lots of wealth available. And if I see that happening to other people, I might start a business. So there's innovation, there's creativity, there's people starting businesses all the time, entrepreneurs. So those are the advantages of free market. But let's look at some not so great things. There is the possibility that people will bust, right? I build up this big business and then it crashes and no one's there to help me. We have different social classes, and the stratification, which means difference between social classes, is bigger in a completely pure free market capitalist economy, because those rich just keep getting richer and the poor keep getting poorer, and there's no government helping mitigate that gap, okay? That plays into the unfair distribution of wealth. Oftentimes it leads to corruption. I own an oil company. Let's say I own an oil company in a free market capitalism economy. I can, if the price is right, buy all the other oil companies. And if I buy all the oil companies, then if you need gasoline, guess who you have to come to? Big Bad Mrs. Keller Oil Company. And I can drive the price up because you got to have gas for your car. You got to have oil to make that gas. So you're paying my price. That's exactly what happened in the 1870s. If you remember from U.S. history, those robber barons, they use their wealth and they exploit the poor, and they had those huge businesses. They created monopolies. A monopoly, which we're going to learn about next unit, is when one company starts buying up all the resources, they can set the price, and you have to pay that price if you need that resource. The social stratification kind of, that last bullet leads to a large lower class and a small elite upper class. I kind of already talked about that, okay? If you need help understanding capitalism or another example, I'm going to link Mr. Sayre's help video for you. So on the opposite end of the spectrum is socialism. Socialism is an economic system where the government is in charge of absolutely everything. Output, input, prices, wages, resources. They pay people. They assign people to different jobs. There are few decisions made by individuals in a socialist economy. So again, let's look at advantages and disadvantages. Advantages, there's going to be more equality, right? Because if the government is regulating everything, then people aren't going to be rich, rich, rich and poor, 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 because the government's spreading out those resources. And if something goes wrong with the economy, there's a recession or a depression, the government has full control anyway, snap. They can make quick strokes to fix it, okay? Disadvantages, I can't be an entrepreneur, start a business, and make tons and tons and tons and tons of money, okay? There's not a lot of economic freedom. The things that I want might not be at the store in my town. And why be creative? Why come up with new ideas for products if I can't create them, start my own business, and turn a profit from it? So, there's good and bad to both. If you need help thinking or need more examples about socialism, I'm going to link this Mr. Sayers extra help video here. But in reality, there's no true capitalist and no true socialist economy anywhere. Almost all economies are mixed economies, and America is a great example of it. So, America is a mixed economy, a mix of socialism. We've got some government regulation and capitalism, but there's free market and there's entrepreneurship and there's innovation and creativity. So, let's take a look at what in America is capitalist? People starting their own businesses, private small businesses, and making money, making it big or breaking it. Charter schools, people breaking away from the public school system, even private schools, breaking away from the public school system that's provided by the government and creating their own school entity and their own education where people have to pay to go. Private insurance and entrepreneurs, all of that sort of stuff is examples of people starting a business or starting a program for themselves in a free market economy where supply and demand. If there wasn't a big demand for a new private school in Lawrenceburg, then there wouldn't be a new private school in Lawrenceburg. No one would think, let's start that because there wasn't a big demand. But if there was a demand and we were in a capitalist society, which we are to some extent, then people could do that, break away from the public school system and start a private school or start a business or have a private insurance company. So let's look at some examples of U.S. socialism. Okay. Now, we don't think of these things as socialism. We just think of these things as the government. But that's the definition, right? The government having a hand in the economy. Social security, where your grandparents and retired people pay their whole lives, and you, if you have a job, are paying into Social Security your whole life, then when you retire, you get that money back in monthly checks. Medicare and Medicaid is health insurance for the poor and elderly. The military is a socialist institution. They take taxes, government regulation, taxes, to pay the military. And the military is one of the largest socialist institutions in America. It's people paid by the government to do something. It's government regulation. And the U.S. military budget is very, very big. So it's a shining example of that. Public education is a socialist institution. You come here for free. Who pays me? The government. Who pays the government? Taxes. Okay. Police, fire, EMS, NASA. Those programs are government programs. They're examples of socialism. And environmental regulation. Companies often have certain amounts of dumping and chemicals that they're allowed to use. Like their carbon footprint has to be a certain size, like shrinking and chemicals and air pollution and things like that. And the government regulates that to try and protect the environment. So sometimes companies have to hamper their production levels to meet that quota of we need much less air pollution. And that's an example of the government regulating the economy. All right, that is all I have for you today. This was the last lecture for Unit 1. So make sure you have all of this down in your notes, and there will be a formative assessment about it soon. Bye, guys.